Welcome to the West Ham Voice. Instead of doing something on transfers, there's another really important factor or another important issue that has been knocking around for the past couple of months or so, and I think it was important to revisit it. We've had a love-hate relationship with the board, I guess you could say, and it's not the first time we've had that with people who own West Ham United in the past. Things like the bond scheme have been an issue at the club. And there was, the fan protest that happened then, which sort of stopped that. And then most recently, the board, for one reason or another, moving us into a new stadium, talking about being a family-run club, etc., and family values. And then they come up with things that upset us. Now, we know that there's a balance that has to be gotten between a family-run club and a business. But sometimes the board do arbitrary things that sort of seem to really get on our nerves and up our noses. And one of the things, of course, is concessions. And I've got a very special guest on with me who's going to talk about that, who's a lot closer to this issue and that's going to explain it to you. And what's happening with the concession. So I'll bring him on. Hello, mate. How are you, Paul?
Yeah, hi, Stelios. Thanks for having me on.
An absolute pleasure. I know we've had chats in the past about things. May not have always seen eye to eye, especially on the Facebook group. But this one, I've got to say, fully behind this and very good reasons why as well. So can you tell us a little bit about you, and a little bit about Hammers United? I'm sure everybody knows you, but just for the uninitiated.
Well, I'm just an ordinary West Ham fan. Been a lot of games over a lot of years with a lot of good people, some who aren't with us anymore. In my time, we all have our time. I used to miss about one game a year. I always bloody miss one. And a lovely lady from Leicester, she came all the way from Leicester. I pulled her at Brentford in the cup and I said, I've got a bone to pick with you. And she said, what's that? I said, you did every game one year and I never quite did it. And from Leicester, she did 42 league games. I missed Newcastle away on a Tuesday night. Yeah, I've been around a long while. I like to think I'm a loyal fan. I'm certainly a passionate fan. And I feel really strongly about this. I feel more strongly about this, actually, than I did the stadium move. And perhaps to my shame, like many of us, I didn't fight that. I didn't want to move stadiums. But frankly, like most people, that's probably not true, but like most of my friends and my ilk, when the final whistle went at Upton Park, I just couldn't wait to get down to Lord Stanley and get as many pints down my neck as possible. And there were good people there, canvassing people about the move. I wasn't one of them. But listen, just because we didn't fight that doesn't mean to say we can't fight anything else.
Yeah,
and this arguably is even bigger.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it's interesting because the whole stadium thing, we were sold an ideology, weren't we? We were sold a dream, and I think a lot of us bought into that. Especially when we saw the plans and it looked like a proper football stadium, and we were sold that dream, weren't we? And I guess I don't want to say the club misled us, but the club misled us in a lot of ways.
I remember I used to go on the Hornchurch coach to all the away games. I still go quite a few. Every one I seem to book up last year ended up being my wedding anniversary or something else. I still went a few, and I'll hopefully go a few more this year. I remember talking to Bill Gardner, and I said, look, Bill, I don't want to move stadiums any more than you do, but there's one thing. I said, wouldn't it be great to have 60,000 West Ham supporters there? It never occurred to me that there wouldn't be 60,000 West Ham supporters.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us were like that. That never crossed my mind. And of course, as we know, they sold the seats to anyone that I've got a family in Welwyn Garden. There's 4. One's Wolves, one's Chelsea, one's Man City, and one's Liverpool. And they've got 4 season tickets. And I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, I don't think many of us did. I think we truly believed, and probably rightly so, that we would fill that stadium with West Ham fans. And I know I started to hear things when we moved there about fans saying it's worth my while buying a £99 ticket or whatever it was, because if I go and see 4 games there against the Liverpools and the Man U's and the Arsenals or whatever, it's money well paid. And that never crossed our minds. And that was the big shame about the stadium move. It was they didn't vet people very carefully. And
I didn't vet people at all.
They didn't vet people at all, in fact, yeah. And people would argue, well, how could you do that? No, it was very easy to have done that if you looked at previous season ticket holders. If you looked at, just ask some, the most basic of questions. You fill out a basic questionnaire, you'll understand more or less who a West Ham fan is and who isn't. And it's a shame, because I know we've still got fans like that scattered around, maybe in the upper areas of the stadium. Who knows? But it kills the atmosphere, doesn't it? And it kills the whole thing about it being a family club, and it's a shame, because what the board are doing now is going to kill the whole issue about it being a family-led club. I mean, Hammers United, I mean, it's been going a few years. Can you give me, before we get onto the concessions bit, some of the other things that you guys do for fans, just some one or two examples?
Yeah, well, frankly, the well-known things, Stelios, I mean, the obvious well-known thing is the giant crest. Now on the back of this. Now, listen, that wasn't Hammers United. That was the West Ham fans coming together. But we sort of, what's the word? We moved it along. Let's put it that way. We got the planning permission, that sort of stuff. I'm really proud of that. And when I'm gone, that's my legacy, as far as I'm concerned. We had the season ticket cards. The club. It was in writing. Anyone could have a season ticket card that wanted it, and they reneged on that.
Yep.
And we started the petition, and we got about 3,000 signatures in a couple of days. And then they went back and kept their promise for a very short while. And then they went back on it again, and we actually got 66 individuals after they'd gone back on it again, season ticket cards. But actually, it's not the more well-known achievements that we do. And let me hold my hands up. We've not done nearly enough. There's been more failures than successes, because dealing with West Ham's not the easiest thing in the world. But we do our best.
I'm led to believe. Yeah.
Yeah, without a doubt. But I think people call it casework. And it wears me down, frankly, because every time there's a West Ham home game, on my desk and the phone calls and the messages, stewarding, ticketing, relocations, bans, mascots, and behind the scenes, we've helped hundreds of people. And some of the stories you hear are almost unbelievable of the way our fans are treated. And it's really sad. And so really, that's our core work, is the casework. And I'll say it, hopefully there's quite a few people listening. If you've got any problems, I don't mean being bloody silly about it, but if you've got a genuine problem, you go in the Hammers United website, there's a contact section, you'll get a reply within 24 hours. You'll probably get a reply within 3 hours. And we'll do our best. We don't always achieve. What I would say is that by and large, the club staff are very helpful. And we do get a lot of I mean, goodness me, when we had the relocations, you've got Jean and Mark, who've gone on the Hornchurch coach, been going together, husband and wife, for decades, and they got split up. And what's all that about? So we sorted that, things like that. And Jean baked me some cakes when we went on the Hornchurch coach as a thank you. So there you go.
And that's the thing, isn't it? It's these little things that make a hell of a lot of difference to individual fans that you guys get involved in. And I think I remember when Hammers United first started, I was like a bit not dismissive, but like, well, what can you do? And I guess I was looking at and probably many fans did, probably looking at the big things, like, well, how are you going to make a difference to West Ham? But it isn't always about the big issues. It is, as you've just said, about these small issues that affect individual fans, and that takes us on to the concessions itself. Now, why the push? I mean, I think a lot of sensible people will understand why, and I don't mean that disrespectfully to those who have been a bit dismissive about it, but why the push? Why is this so important?
Well, there's the obvious thing. I mean, for instance, how many really loyal, long-standing fans have we out there that have done decades up and down the country that haven't got a season ticket at the moment? They can't afford it. maybe work, and they're zeroing in. They can see that what it should have been is when they were 65. But West Ham pulled a fast one last year. Only West Ham and Villa did it. Only West Ham and Villa did it. They pushed the age up to 66. Hammers United fought that, and old school Hammers fought it. Nobody else did. Okay. I had arguments with people on Facebook. What's the problem? And that same guy that argued with me came back and apologised this year. He said, you were right. No one did anything about that, so they've come for more. And if we don't oppose this, I'll tell you what, it won't be long before there are no concessions at all. And lots of my mates getting tickets for 350, 400 quid would be paying 700, 800 if we're not careful. But that's the old bit. It's the young that's the most important. I'm 68. You know, you guys aren't going to have to put up with me for much longer. You get too old to go, you die. The natural progression is our kids, our grandkids, great grandkids, nephews and nieces and great nieces and great nephews. They take our place, but that's not going to happen anymore. Now the club will say they can go in band 5 and 6. Well, some of the grandparents aren't well enough. They can't do the steps in band 5 or 6. But more importantly, they've got all their families and all their friends in band 1, 2, 3, 4. They don't want to move.
Exactly that.
And all the rest of the family and friends aren't going to move with them. So really, the reality is they either buy the bloody full price ticket for the Nipper or they don't. And in probably the majority of cases, they won't. And so what that will mean is that families that have been going forever of what I would call traditional fans won't be able to go. Just won't be able to go. And it's also, you know,
sorry, go on.
Concessions, rightly so, in my view, has become the most important thing. But let's not forget the price rises. The price rises are way, way, way in excess of inflation. I wrote them down, actually. The price rises this year were between 6 and 14, and last year were 8%. And if you look at the price rises on match day tickets alone, they're higher than that. Okay, they're even higher than the season ticket prices. In some cases, 20%. So it's not just the concessions. Some people are being full stop priced out.
Do you think?
Come on, the price. Sorry, go on.
Do you think, Paul, when we moved to the stadium and it was always about, you know, sort of affordable football, affordable family football, do you think maybe the club have kind of sat back and thought, oh, hang on a minute, we're not keeping up with the Joneses, we're not keeping up with the Tottenhams and the Arsenals, etc. And this mantra of affordable football, we're going to have to try and phase that out. Do you think they've kind of shot themselves in the foot a little bit by doing that?
I think you're right, but let's turn that round. When you say they're not keeping up with them, in the last over 10 years, West Ham's turnover has gone up 28 million. Tottenham's turnover has gone up 172 million. Now that's what can you say? And I would say that basically to cover their incompetence and greed, they're now trying to exploit the fans' loyalty. Mm-hmm. What they should be doing, not keeping up with Tottenham price-wise, perhaps, is keeping up with Tottenham is their commercial income. But I'll tell you this, and listen, you can't. It's very, very difficult, Stelios, to evaluate season ticket prices because, of course, West Ham will say they do a really cheap one. I don't believe it is the cheapest anymore, but you don't know how many there are. It's not much use having a cheap one if there's about 10 of them or 50 of them. Mm. And so I've done some work, which you'd have expected me to do, looking at season ticket prices throughout the Premier League. And you can't say, yeah, we're more than them or less than them, because you don't know how many's in each band at each club. But I'll tell you this, there's only 2 clubs that are obviously more expensive than West Ham. Chelsea aren't obviously more expensive. That might surprise you. You can make a very good case out that West Ham are more expensive than Chelsea now. It's only Arsenal and Tottenham. But if you look at the matchday prices, I believe it's only West Ham that don't offer any concessions at all. Arsenal and Tottenham do. Yeah. And also,
that's interesting because I was led to believe that Tottenham had phased out matchday concessions as well, but clearly not.
Not for kids. Not for kids. Now, here's another thing. If you analyse it, you could argue that an 8-year-old kid behind the goal, a new season ticket holder, is more at West Ham than Arsenal, Tottenham and Chelsea. So, you know, you can use your figures as you want. But to say West Ham aren't keeping up, I would say West Ham's prices are more than any other team in the Premier League. Apart from Chelsea and Liverpool, you can make a case out either way, but we are slightly more than Arsenal and Tottenham. But our match day prices for concessions are the worst in the Premier League.
There's another thing that made me think, Paul, and you mentioned it. There's been a lot of fans that have been going for years. We're all getting that bit older. Has it dawned on West Ham that all of a sudden, within the next couple of years, they might have to give out more concessions than they would want to? You know, I'm in my 60s. There's a lot of fans who are in their sort of early 60s, etc., who have been going. And it's not going to be too long before you've got quite a number of fans who should be at concession stage. And maybe West Ham, and I'm not saying for a minute that this is an argument for them doing what they're doing, but maybe for a minute they're going, hang on a minute, we're going to come to a stage at some point in the very near future that half the concessions are going to be down in the, you know, around the stadium. I mean, but that shouldn't matter, should it? Because that's your loyalty, isn't it?
What price loyalty? But we've spoken, as you'd expect us to leading experts on football finance, and they maintain that the amount of money West Ham will get out of this attack on concessions would pay, quote, Danny Ings' wages for 4 or 5 weeks. It's not material.
Yeah.
It's a drop in the ocean.
Yeah.
And the amount of money they're going to lose on the Betway Cup goes some way to negating that. What they're doing, and I know they've got to run a business, but what they will try, and the illusion, we know what illusions they can do. World-class team in a world-class stadium, seats can't be further away than the pitch. We know how they do these things. The illusion they're going to try and get out there is, we cannot compete unless we put all the prices up and do away with concessions. It's just not true.
Yeah,
it's just not true.
I think it was Sean that worked out it was something like an additional £600,000, which it really is, with the greatest of respect, a drop in the ocean.
Yeah. I mean, Baroness Brady's wages have doubled in the last 10 years. Our income, our commercial income, as I say, has gone up 28 million. Tottenham's is 172. Perhaps they should be looking at those sort of things instead of exploiting the fans' loyalty. But what they want, and West Ham aren't alone in this, you know, let's be frank. I spoke at the Football Supporters Association's AGM, and I said, look, if it's not coming to you yet, it will do. You know, start to mobilise, start to spread the word. They want the higher price seats sold eventually, match by match. They don't want season tickets in there either, I'm telling you.
And this is the thing, absolutely, because
match by match, full paying people.
And this is the thing, it's not just about, when people say, well, it doesn't bother me, you know, I'm in my 20s, I'm in my 30s, so why should I care? It's not about that, is it? Because as you've just pointed out, it's about where this goes. It's about what trajectory this takes. Because now
it's going to. Sorry about it. Well, firstly, I'm insane. I think we've done enough already that it will put the block on them doing away with everything next year. They may come again and they may do things. They probably will look to do things gradually. I'm convinced if we hadn't put some fight up, and a bloody good fight up this year, they'd have come for everything next year. And people that are saying it's nothing to do with them, paying 350 quid at the moment, would be paying 700 next year. I'm very confident of that. But those people who think it doesn't affect them, are they not going to have children and grandchildren? You know, these people in their 30s, it's probably going to affect them more than anybody else in actual fact. But it's not just that. If people are shallow enough that they only talk about pounds, shillings and pence, what price is a fan base? You can't put a price on a fan base. And let's suppose you're still well off enough that you can still afford to come. Do you want to come if none of your friends are coming anymore? We all go to football to meet our mates.
Yeah, exactly that.
So you're going to come on your own, sit in a soulless bowl. Atmosphere non-existent. I'm a different generation from you, Stelios. You'll have your own matches, though I was probably at them as well. My heyday, QPR in the quarter-final. The fans took us through. We won the cup against Fulham. We wouldn't have got through but for the fans. You fast forward 5 years, Villa in the quarter-final when we won the cup against Arsenal. The fans took us through. Coventry, League Cup semi-final, the fans took us through. What price do you put on that? And there's a financial gain, obviously, with cup finals in Europe. More recently, remember when Tottenham looked like they were going to win the league? They were never going to win at Upton Park. It weren't going to happen because of our fans. And if the fans aren't there like they used to be, what price is that? And when they talk about their brand, how will that devalue their brand?
Well, this is it. I mean, there's just been a concerted effort to go out to America to attract a new fan base. You know, they want the overseas market, of course. You know, there's a lot of money to be made in America and in Japan, in Asia, etc. But it's built on not just the football on the that's being played on the pitch. It's built on it's built on the atmosphere. You know, the atmosphere that the fans can portray. And I've asked the question when I've spoken to others about it, and much the same as what you've just alluded to. If you've got, I don't want to call them tourist fans or whatever, but if you've got day fans, let's say day fans who they're going to turn up, and it isn't going to have the same atmosphere, is it? I mean, by doing this and by killing off that tradition, you know, those groups of friends that go create the atmosphere, if you kill that off, what's left? You know, and if the football on the pitch isn't great, I mean, we've seen it. You know, when the football on the pitch is not great, the fan base is just like, and this is a traditional fan base that you would argue is not getting behind the team or can't get behind the team. How much worse would it be when you've sold all your low level tickets, all your lower seat tickets to your day fans who just don't have that feeling? We have it when we have it in cup games now. I'm in the Bobby Moore lower, and you know that the atmosphere is going to be completely different on cup games because you know those who can't afford to go who have season tickets will come, you know, try and bring their kids and all that to a cup game, and you just know that the atmosphere is quite different because they're not going on a regular basis. But doing this is going to kill that off completely, isn't it?
I call them Premier League fans. You know, I don't like to use the word. There's a place for them in the stadium. I've no problem with these, but not bloody thousands and thousands and thousands of them at the expense of traditional fans.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. Now, I've got good mates, particularly in the New York Hammers, and they don't support West Ham for the glory. And Sean, I actually was with Sean watching the final in Prague, in a pub in Prague. He comes over a lot. And then there's Norman Gallia from Malta. He comes over a lot. Yeah. They fell in love with the fan base. And they want to win games. Of course we do. You know, I do. But honest, if you know, me personally, I would rather retain our fan base and come halfway and have a cup run than win the bloody whatever they call the European Cup nowadays and not have a fan base. The fan base is the most important thing in the club. What's the point of having a good club, a good team, if you can't afford to go and watch them?
Yeah, yeah.
And funny enough, at the FSA AGM, I was talking to a rep from the Charlton fans, and I said, I don't think you realise it. I said, you have got a real opportunity here. As a Ivorian, you can nick a whole generation of West Ham fans.
Of West Ham fans. Yeah.
Yeah. And then that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because loads of my mates have stopped going. And I admit that's partially the new stadium and it's an age thing. I'll give you a good story. So I don't go to the stadium, as you know. I'll be going now because there's things I've got to do at the stadium, but I usually go to Plaistow. You'll be quite shocked. There's people come from all over the country to Plaistow to watch the match. But so I've lost my train. I was talking about going to the stadium, wasn't I?
You were saying that there's a reason that you have to go to the stadium.
Yeah. So some of my friends. So the point is, because I'm getting old, I'm not afraid of the dark or anything, but I tend not to go to some of the night matches because I'm not going in the stadium. So I went to one of the local pubs to watch the big quarter-final match, which went to extra time. And there's 2 or 3 of us been going West Ham 50 years, Newcastle away, all the games. And we still go away games. And we go the Saturday, Sunday games to the Stanley. So we're in this pub, not our local, but in the town centre. There's a fella in there and his girlfriend, all the West Ham stuff done up head to foot. So it's extra time. So I'm up the bar getting another round of drinks, and they go outside. I said, "What? You're going out for a fag? You know, you're nervous." He said, "No, we've got to go home. I've got work in the morning." And I looked at this bloke. It's a quarter final, and I thought, in my day, I hitchhiked to Newcastle, and that was when it was dangerous to go to these games. I
Yeah.
slept on motorway service stations. We got the milk train home. We never went to bed. We went straight to work. And there's this new bloke saying, "Yeah, well, I can't watch the extra time. I've got to get up for work." And I thought, has it come to this? Has it come to this?
It has
Because,
come to this.
yeah, you know, and so I'm afraid a lot of my friends don't go. If it does come to a protest, which it may or may not, then those guys, you know, my son won't go anymore, but he'll turn out for the good of the fan base
Mhm.
if and when the call is made, as he did before. He's 31, hates it, won't go anymore. He went to the Youth Cup final with me to the Emirates.
Yeah.
He's going to try and go a couple of away games. But I had the joy of taking my little boy with me. Needless to say, they always lose West Ham when you take your little boy all dressed up for his first match. But he became a season ticket holder for years, and it's a fantastic pleasure. And that's going to be denied. Going to be
Yeah,
denied
because I remember
a
I
lot of
took my
people.
daughter when she was 4 to her first game, and it was the game. It was Pastagate when we played Spurs,
Oh well, you
and
picked a good one.
yeah, thankfully, and I just remember her when because I was saying to her, you know, we sing this song, etc., and
Mm.
she was learning the words and all that, and I remember the look on her face at 4 when the players were coming out and we started singing Bubbles, and she was
Yeah,
like, you could see the joy, you know, the like, oh wow,
it's
you know,
fantastic.
it was fantastic, and
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right. What's going to happen is if this really does go through, is we're going to miss a whole generation's going
We're
to
going to miss a whole
miss out on it.
generation.
Yeah.
Now, my son, he's out of love with it at the moment, but probably, I don't know, everyone's different, but probably my son will have children. I'll be in the wheelchair by then, or whatever. You know, that's probably not the right. I'll be struggling maybe to go to West Ham, and he'll probably want to take my grandchildren, but he won't be able to afford it,
Mm.
and it's just tragic, and it can't be allowed to happen. Now, people are saying that some West Ham supporters don't care because it doesn't affect them. Others are saying, well, they must understand it will affect. They're just too stupid. Look, I don't believe West Ham. I've sort of think better of West Ham fans. I think there's just a lot out there either don't know about it, and a lot don't. I went to see Bruce Springsteen the other night, and a fellow who sort of knows me called me over. He didn't know anything about it. It's the
Right.
close season. You know, we don't all live in the same city. We don't all live local anymore. There's a lot of people don't know about it, and there's others don't understand it. And our priority, not Hammers United and the many people helping us, is we've got to raise awareness and we've got to get the message out there. Because I don't believe there's a West Ham fan out there that won't support this campaign if they
I agree
understand.
because
They
I
know.
was looking just before we went on today. I was looking at the the petition, which is just under 15,000 at the moment,
Yeah,
I believe.
yeah,
And I mean, I think probably if people don't know how to get onto it, if you go to change.org and then go into browse and there's a search button there, click on the search button, and just type in opposed season tickets. All you got to type in, it'll be one of the first things that come up. And if you haven't already signed the petition, do go and sign it. And I think you're right. I think maybe because it's closed season, maybe it hasn't quite got the impetus. So that's what I was going to come on to, because you've been doing quite a few things. You talked about the FSA. I've seen the open letters that you've sent to the various
yeah.
board members that you're doing that. I don't know. Has that had any resonance? Have you had any replies from that at all, or any
No,
acknowledgement?
no. Let's go through all what we're doing, if that's okay.
Sure. Yeah.
To start with, and it was the easiest thing I've ever done. I contacted just by phone call. That's how I work. I'm old fashioned. Uh, Phoned up just about all the Facebook groups. But I know them all. all completely on board. So if I've got something particularly important, I'll email them or phone them and say, would you mind you posting this at everyone? Then you guys, the podcasts, and you're a different world to me. I don't understand it. We've always had a good working relationship with Gio and Gonzo at Hammers Chat.
Mm-hmm.
Phoned them up. They were in front of me. They'd already done a program on it. The West Ham Way reached out to us, and I went on that. A guy I didn't know, I was advised to contact, a fella called Nick at Claret and Booze.
Mm-hmm.
Contacted him. He put a very good program out. Another one contacted me, West Ham Network. I went on there. Sean Whetstone and Nigel went on their show. Sean Whetstone is very supportive. Don't think we've ever been on the same side of the fence before, but credit where credit's due. So people reached out to us. We reached out, or I reached out, I suppose. There's talents out there, and you clock them over the years. There's a fellow called Mike Corston, who's a very accomplished writer. Mike's now working with us. The chap that writes largely for Knees Up Mother Brown, Paul Walker. Yeah, I asked Paul to do a piece, and he did, and it was great. But let's be frank, these guys would have done it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've got our own talents, and actually, I think the best piece that's ever been written, if you go on our website, it's called something like More Than a Club. And one of our people, one of my mates, wrote this piece, and it talks about singing "I'm Forever Blowing Bubbles." And when I was at the FSA, I said, look, you could substitute that for "You Never Walk Alone," "Blue Moon," whatever. And they're thinking about sort of adopting it as a sort of national sort of piece to go out all over the Premier League. And anyone who's not read that, please do, because you'll cry your bloody eyes out. So then the Old School Hammers, they made contact. You're obviously aware of Alex, who's done a lot of good work.
Yep.
Save Our Concessions, who's made a brilliant video. He's made contact. Yep. The Crossed Hammers made contact. These are three groups who are working closely with us. There are others, but some don't want to really put their head over the parapet. I put a letter out this morning about leafleting, and I put another one out about what sort of flag should we buy. And those letters went to 27 people. So if you want, we've a cabinet of 27 people involved, and there's some really, really good. There's people, honestly, that put in a hell of a lot of hours.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be aware. Two guys reached out to me. They've both got, one's called Moet Achia. Probably people will be familiar with him. He ghostwrote Bill Gardner's book, I believe. And another fellow called Terry Messenger. And Terry, especially, he's got a massive background in journalism, worked for the BBC. And they've stepped it up a notch. So through them is how we got Tony Cottee on board, Frank McAvenny on board. One of my ex-committee members, which still helps us a lot, he's now got David Cross on board. We should have announced that a while back. We've held it back, but that'll be going out. I don't think we can claim any credit for Ray Winston, but you'll be aware Ray Winston's on board.
Yeah.
And this fellow, Terry Messenger, now, he's everywhere. And what he does now, he gets these press releases and he sends them to the Financial Times, the Telegraph, the Independent, the Guardian, all his personal journalist contacts. And it's starting to bear fruit. The Mail now is starting to do it. We're going to be on Price of Football. I was on a London, some sort of station that will be published yesterday. Andy Payne was on an Austrian TV channel. We've got out of our West Ham bubble. And listen, you guys are our core. But we've got out of the West Ham bubble, and it's going national. Henry Winter. Henry Winter's another huge one. Andy Payne met him in Germany for the World Cup. Ollie Potter's done a video. It's getting out there. Definitely. Yeah.
And I think that's a really good thing, to be honest with you, Paul, because I think in the past I kind of questioned, doing marches and stuff like that is all very well. But what else is what I used to ask in the past, and hearing what you're talking about now and getting it out there in the domain, I think is the most important thing, because we know that when it's in the faces of the board, they react. If they keep it at arm's length, they kind of go, it'll wash over. I think that's the theory. You keep it at arm's length, it's going to wash over. Let's not be too worried about it. But the publicity that you're talking about is going to have an impact, not just for West Ham United, but as you kind of alluded to, who's to say? And it's quite interesting what you said at the very start of the show, that it was only Aston Villa and West Ham who did away with the age, changed the age group. And it's just maybe a slight coincidence that the head of ticketing used to be at Aston Villa. Maybe I'm reading too much into that, but I don't know.
Who knows?
But to hear that you're doing this, this campaign, I think this is what's going to really make a big difference. And
I hope so. I have to say, the most successful thing was not Hammers United's idea. We were there was just so. The other day, I actually emailed myself, really, among my inner circle, because there's so much going on. I thought I need something written down because I'm losing track. There's so much going on, but it wasn't actually our idea. But one of the people we're working with, it was his idea, the boycott of the Betway Cup. And I have to say that has been more successful than I ever imagined.
Yeah.
Because firstly, I've heard from, I can't prove it, but I've heard from two different sources. One says West Ham have given 2,000 away, and one says they've given 2,005. They've given some away. I think they've probably got rid of about 8,000, and they will include people who bought them, A, before the boycott was announced, or B, are still unaware.
Yep.
But they have put out, as you will know, they have been relentless. They've emailed people, phoned people. Oh, don't forget you've got club cash, you can use that. Oh, what about this? We'll offer you this in hospitality. But the West Ham fan base has stayed firm. And they probably in the end, through a massive effort, get rid of 10,000. Well, last year there was 27. So that's been very successful. Now the petition, we'll get 20,000. That's it, no problem. But what you've got to remember is Wolves did better to start with their petition. I'm sure Wolves have fans that don't live in Wolverhampton, but mostly a lot of them will go to work together, go to the pub together, see each other in Sainsbury's, easier to spread the word. But that 15 where we're at now, people there, Stelios, it'll be a mum or a dad, but they go with two kids. That 15 represents more. And also, and look, it was the same for Wolves. The petition is a blooming awful format. You go on it, the first thing it does is ask for money. And obviously, anyone listening, God's sake, don't give any money. And it certainly doesn't come our way, and I wouldn't want it. So please share it. But then you have to sort of confirm it and everything. You lose a lot that way. I'm sure the petition will get to 20,000, but the Betway Cup boycott has been so successful. I myself have been astounded.
That's going to have a lot more impact, isn't it? I think that got to worry the club because, we've got a new era coming up, Lopetegui, with all the signings, another couple of signings today, etc. And what we've been doing. Clearly, the board have been investing in the squad and all that sort of stuff. And it would have been a showcase, wouldn't it? West Ham United would have wanted 25,000. I think they ended up opening up the whole of the lower tier. But as you've rightly pointed out, it's nowhere near.
They've opened it up now, but they've sold next to no tickets.
Yeah,
it's embarrassing for them.
That's going to embarrass them, isn't it?
Yeah. Obviously, they will put a particular spin on it,
of course.
But Hammers United will be at the Betway Cup, not in the stadium, and we're not going there to say to people, "Oh, what the bloody hell are you going in the match for?" That would be completely wrong. We'll be saying to people that have a great day, enjoy the game, but would you mind taking a leaflet? Give it some thought. There won't be many of us because not many of our committee live around the area anymore. And of course, none of us are going to the match. I'll come in 30 miles. Others are coming 30 miles. Others are on holiday, but there'll be a few of us. And we will run our own story on the Betway Cup. I'll say no more than that. But we'll run our own story. But that's been a great success. I'm very pleased. If I can just move on from that, something we're going to do now. We've been encouraging people who've boycotted to give their money to the Irons supporting food banks.
Yeah. And I know John very well. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I hadn't met the guy till recently, personally. And I didn't realise the scale of the operation and the amount of hours the guy puts in. And
Oh yeah, he does.
I'm in
Yeah,
total admiration. So what we've decided to do, is just remind people that we're supposed to be boycotting Betway full stop. So maybe don't have a bet. Maybe stick it in the bucket. But what we're going to be doing, I think we're going to call it program for food. And what we're going to say to people is that fiver, so long since I bought one, it can't be much different to a fiver. Stick that fiver in the bucket for the food banks. Don't buy a program. And we can do that all season. And I think that'll catch on. So program for food, stick your program money in the bucket.
that's a really good idea, because I was going to ask, how can we get involved? What do you want from us? And that's a fantastic idea.
I think so.
Yeah.
Well, what do I want? Well, let's not say what do I want. What do we want? And this is not just
what do we want as a fan base? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I would ask people, please, to sign the petition. Get your friends to consider. Everyone's different. Consider not buying merchandise or cutting down on merchandise. Consider moving from Betway, or don't betting at all. Stick some money in the food banks. Please, I think a good realistic one or a very attainable one, don't buy a program anymore. Just don't bother. Now, most of all, we've got to spread awareness. There's thousands of people out there. It's close season. They don't know. They don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Spread awareness. Now, we'll be there at the Betway Cup and against Villa. We've got 20,000 leaflets printed up. They've got the QR code on them, which goes direct to the petition. And that's the first name of the game, is raise awareness. Alongside all this going on with the press and the MPs, because the MPs, 3 have now written, and we met this morning, and we've really got to get meetings with the other 2. There's 5 so far. 5 have said that they're in definite support of the campaign. 2 have definitely had replies to the club, which we've discussed with them, and we're just discussing with them how perhaps now we move forward, because I'm not at all impressed with the replies from the club. They don't address the issues. The same as Baroness Brady's open letter, which I think she said, quote, a small uplift in prices. That's both disingenuous and misleading. Full stop.
Yeah. And then almost like she was almost believing she was being gracious by giving 25% off on concessions on some, but you want it back to where it needs to be, don't you?
Yeah. Well, listen, a couple of things on that. Any movement's good movement. But we were looking at legal challenges. And that was an obvious legal challenge coming. And she knew we were looking at legal challenges. That might be the reason. Now, that small concession, if you want, on concessions, isn't much. Maybe if we can get about 10 like that, maybe then we'll be at a position when my members and the West Ham fan base as a whole will say that's enough. Personally, I'll go on record. I'm convinced the club will move on it. Whether or not they move enough remains to be seen. And that would not be my decision. That would be the fan base.
I think there's another thing to consider also when we're talking about Betway. There's 1 year left on that contract, I believe. Now, the club are clearly looking for a new sponsor. Of course they would be. And if there are potential sponsors out there that are going to be seeing what's happening,
sure,
how are they going to be? But I mean, this could have this is maybe what the board is not thinking, or maybe that they are. I don't know. But what's interesting is that Betway will say there's 1 year left. All right, it's going to cost us another 10 million. We're committed to that contractually, etc. But any new sponsor coming in is going to be looking at this situation and going, "This is not what we want. This is not what we're going to sponsor the club for." So I think maybe there's probably a lot more that can be done there as well. Because if you're targeting the Betway in the way that you are, potential sponsors are going to look at that and go, hang on a minute, is this as lucrative as it should be for us?
Great. We're trying to look at everything, but we had a little meeting this morning. I mean, I'm probably doing 10 hours a day on this, and there's a couple of others probably doing more, and there's 27 people involved in various ways. But you're always going to miss something or not have time for something.
Mhm.
And one of my men this morning, I said, "What's happening with the MPs?" He said, "I'm so sorry, I've not." I said, "Look, you're jumping through hoops, you're doing hours. Don't be sorry. You know, there's only so much can be done, but we will do our very best to not leave a stone unturned. And anybody that's watching this, if you've got any ideas, if you go on the Hammers United website, contacts page, if you email us, the worst that'll happen is you'll get a reply saying thank you. We're not. I have been where I've been clever, Stelios, is I've surrounded myself with some very clever people. But at the end of the day, certainly me, we're just ordinary West Ham supporters. And the people watching this are just as likely to have good ideas as what we have.
Paul, what is the
I have
Hammers United website email address?
It's no good asking me. I don't do what you have to do. I'll tell you how I get on it.
Go on.
I go on Google and I put Hammers United and then it comes up.
Great idea. Okay.
That's the way I go on everything.
Let me
And listen, if you
just...
go on the Hammers United website, under the news section, the last 3 pages are totally about this campaign. And the one there that talks about more than a club is this man's fantastic piece about singing "I'm for Blowing Bubbles." It's absolutely brilliant. The other thing, probably most people have seen it, but there was a fantastic video, I'm sure you're aware of it, produced by a fella called Alex Kirby.
Yeah,
with his little
I had
boy.
Alex on a few weeks ago.
He's great. That.
Yeah.
And I think it got, again, it's not my world, but I think he got about 130 views on his Twitter. And it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
The whole bloody thing's heartbreaking. It's not necessary. They don't need to do it. I tell you what I said at the FSA. I said, I'll tell you why they're doing it. They're doing it because they can.
Yeah.
They see a fan base paralyzed with apathy and they think they can get away with it. But this time, the fans have just decided we're not taking, it's just too much.
Yeah.
And so this time, the fans are fighting back. They did it because they thought they'd get away with it.
Yeah, agreed. Paul, I said we were going to talk 15 minutes. We're on 47.
Okay.
But it's been,
and that's when I've not had a drink.
But no, it's been fantastic. Is there anything else you want to add before we go?
No, I think we've covered everything. Look, this is a campaign, not a protest. But
I think that's a really important message to put out there. Yeah,
things may change. So, if you keep doing everything you can with the press and the MPs and everything else, and nothing changes, then you have to move on. So watch this space. That's
great. Thank you, Paul. We're going up to the stadium on Saturday. I'm going to hold my hand up and say before the Betway thing was announced, I did buy a ticket, but I'm not going to use it. I'm going to meet my mates. We're going to go for a beer around there, and I'll come and say hello. Are you going to be at the main gate?
Well, firstly, fair play to you, and thanks for that. I probably would be on, I don't know what you call it. Is it Bridge 1?
Concourse, yeah, the main concourse, yeah.
Well, there won't be many of us there. We'll have a very big presence there against Villa. But I'll give you some leaflets to give out. Nigel Khan's giving some out.
Oh, is he going to be there? Oh, I'll bump into him then.
Yeah, not Betway Cup, I don't think. But you'd be surprised, you podcast people, there's quite a few that will be leafleting against Villa.
Right.
So you won't get away with it. I'll give you some. You might go around the corner.
I'll be happy to take some with me. No problem at all.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now I had a chat with Bruno, how much he got. So I'll give you an address to send the brown envelope. And,
I forgot to send it. Okay. I'll give it to you to give it to him.
Okay, he's going to be helping leaflet. I spoke to.
He's a character and a half.
I didn't know his name was Bruno. I thought they called him Bruno because he had a good punch. It's his proper name. I never knew that till recently. Okay, thanks very much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Much appreciated. Thank you for coming on, Paul.
Okay. My pleasure. And thank you. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye. Bye.
So there you have it. It's a worthy cause. It's an absolutely right thing to do. And I think Paul's given a good coverage of what this is all about. And if you want to get involved, as he suggested, Google Hamels United, you know, ask them, offer suggestions as to what else can be done as a fan base to really push this, because it's important to do so. And if you want to watch the video that Alex did, go to his Twitter account, which is Save Concessions, at Save Concessions, and you'll see the link to the video that he did, which is fantastic. And also, if you've yet to sign the petition, go to change.org and then just go to browser, and let me just bring that up. Go to the browse button and then press the search button and just type in opposed season ticket, and you'll be able to sign the petition as well. My thanks to Paul. It's a really important issue. Do get behind it, and I'll see you all very soon.